We're going to keep it up for about 30 seconds so people can get on, get to the live show.
Join us in the chat.
Yeah, the chat's usually popping.
Your artwork's awesome. I used one of them for one of my podcasts actually, and I thanked you in it.
Sweet.
But it was one of your memes.
Awesome, man. Yeah, anything, any slides I do, put it out there for anyone to use. Definitely. All right, ladies and gentlemen, intro time.
The intention of Natural Freedom League is to expand the understanding of natural law, which is based on objective morality, and to expose the illegitimacy of the belief in authority, and thus the inherent immorality of all government.
We be the Natural Freedom League, cause we become no longer unbegun. We seek in the wisdom, and that's why we did come to this prison, a prism. And that's why the beat thumps, and that's why we speak up. We be the Natural Freedom League, cause we become no longer unbegun. We seek in the wisdom, and that's why we did come to this prison, a prism. And that's why the beat thumps, and that's why we speak up. We be the...
Hello, everybody. Welcome once again to Natural Freedom League. You can find us at naturalfreedomleague.com. I am John Rowland, here once again with my producer and co-host, Will Keller. What's up, Will?
What's up, my brother? Episode 61.
61. All
yeah,
right.
man.
Let's get right to it. This gentleman was introduced to me by Will, who heard him call in on the Mark Passio show a few weeks ago. Also on the Facebook page, the Natural Law Groups, connecting through there. And he is ex-military, ex-law enforcement, and had a recent awakening and started doing the great work himself. Welcome, Daniel Arnold. Hello, Daniel.
Hey, hello. Thanks for having me, man.
What's up, brother? Yeah, thanks for coming on, man.
Yeah, this is actually pretty cool. Whole new format for me, so I'm getting used to this stuff. When I first started doing my podcast, they were really train wrecks. So like they've improved since then.
That's
cool.
part of the process, right? You got to have that 0 point, and so you start, and then you build on top of that and evolve. So it's been
just coming on from this side of things. I've already learned a couple things, so I dig it, man. It's good stuff. Awesome. Wish it wasn't needed, like I said, but it's awesome.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, we got to make the most out of it. Find the joy in it. It's definitely teaching us as well.
This tool works for us just like it does for them.
Exactly, helping us work through it.
Right.
Yeah, and but in saying that, I did see some of the first half of the podcast with David Icke. Congratulations to get him on. That must have been amazing to be able to talk to him.
It was crazy, actually. I was in Florida training, and I decided to start hitting people up. Here's a strange thing. I put this book out there, Rise from Darkness, and it talks about how I got over unhealthy coping mechanisms that probably stemmed from my work and stress as an order follower. And because you're at constant war with yourself with that. And I've done podcasts about that too. And I was like, I want this book to help people, but I was also trying to be not in the public eye. Like, I want it to help, but I want to stay ambiguous. And I realized that's not congruent. So I was like, okay, I got to clean up this and fix this throat chakra problem and start talking beyond my little podcast I was doing. So I was like, what do I have to lose? Hit people up. So he's not the only one. I hit up Stephen Greer and didn't hear back from Stephen Greer. They've got like similar messages with a couple of little differences, which is why I wanted to talk to them both. But when I heard back from David Icke, and he was like, we suggest, how about April 11th? And I was like, 411 information. I thought that was kind of synchronistic. And as Will knows, I get into numbers. I get into synchronicity with numbers. I can be real left woo-woo like that, right? But talking to him was like I almost didn't get it. It almost didn't happen because it was 5 o'clock London time. For whatever reason, I was counting 5 hours in the other direction. So I was
Mhm.
sitting down here and get this notification that says, "Hey, your Zoom meeting's about to start with David Icke," and I'm like, "No, that's not till 10 o'clock tonight." Like I had all these questions that I wanted to narrow it down to just 2 or 3 that day, and that's why at the very beginning of it, he was like, "Hey, I'm glad you were here. We almost didn't meet because we almost didn't." I was looking up the time, and then I jump into Zoom, and I've got somebody waiting in the waiting room, and I pull him in, and it's David Icke. Wow, and I think I was pretty authentic in the beginning of it when I was like, "Hey, I'm nervous. I'm talking to David Icke." He'd have none of that hero worship shit. He wouldn't have it, which was good because I was having a comfortable conversation with the guy 15 minutes into it. Yeah, very easy. Like I don't even call it an interview. It was just very easy to talk to him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was to say the least that I was honored that somebody like he's the guy who's inspired people who've inspired me. He's like my grandfather of inspiration, right? So it was cool to talk to him, and I got a lot of good feedback from it. So I'm happy about that.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, a lot of people can get starstruck or intimidated, right? But it just
Yeah.
takes that, just hitting someone up. We're all fighting for freedom and truth and morality. So there's that initial connection that we have with each other that is genuine and real because it's based on sovereignty and freedom and stuff. So it
Yes.
was awesome to see that genuine conversation, peers sitting down and
I
having a
don't
great
consider
chat.
him I don't consider myself a peer to him at all, but I can tell you this. What happens is, and I know this from being a martial arts instructor, because I've had students put me up on that pedestal, right? And it's a long way to fall from that pedestal. So you never want to be put on it. And you guys got a lot of stuff going on. It might happen to you guys. I'm pretty sure I did it with Mark. I'm pretty sure I did it with David Icke. You do it with all these different people that become these internet personalities, like Derek Bros, all these guys that you respect their work. So they become these internet personalities, and it's not what they want to be. They want our help. And back in October, I got to spend some time with and share some space with Derek and Miriam at the activation tour here in Cleveland. I secured the spot, helped pay for it and stuff, and that's what started pulling me out of my shell a little bit, because I got up and I talked in front of like 40, 50 people that were there, and realized, yeah, if you're going to actually do this, you need to be all in or just stop. There
Yeah.
is no, you can't half step this shit. You either got to go all the way. And what I've come to realize is once you know what's going on, how can you not just go all the way? Because we have to win this.
Yeah.
We can't lose this. We have to win this. There's a real evil in this world. And, I'm like, when I get around guys like you, I'm like, wow, people who speak English, thank God, because you spend so much time talking to people and they really don't get it. And you could only give the message to people who are willing to hear it. Yeah, otherwise you're kind of beating your head up against a brick wall.
Yeah.
I mean, we got to try, but yeah, it's the way I asked Mark the same question that I asked David. How have you guys done this for so long? I'm only like 3 years in, and I'm already getting aggravated by it. Like my hat goes off to these guys who have been doing this for so long.
Why don't you get into how your awakening happened? I mean, I'm really interested in, I heard you say it was kind of, within the last few years, and obviously you were working in law enforcement before. Like, how did that transition come about?
Well, I kind of talk about in Rise from Darkness, my own Rise from Darkness. My Dark Night of the Soul is in 2014. Without giving every detail of the book, I ended up in a psychiatric emergency room. And I'm a former government employee. And that, by the way, that's my daughter's artwork that I put on this book. It's only 190 DPI. I kept it like that on purpose.
Nice.
Because I wanted it to have that look to it. That was her artwork. So boom, I just put it on there. And
Very
the tiger has a special meaning to me because I kept having these recurring dreams where I'm battling this tiger. And I tell that whole story in the book too. And bear in mind, as a former government employee, this book is an action-packed fiction of some things. Okay. So, and I talk about what could happen if you're working for the government and you have an accident and you're hurt in the line of duty, and what they might do to throw you under the bus. which is one of my messages to order followers, that they don't care about you. They will throw you under the bus. And I ended up in a psychiatric emergency room where I was shot up with hallucinogens. I talk about that really detailed on what I experienced that night with these hallucinogens. And it all boils down to the questions that they asked me the next day. The very last question was, were you hallucinating last night? Well, they already knew the answer to that question because they knew what they gave me. So then all these other questions that they had asked me, they had already a good gauge on truthfulness versus deception. So that last question, they already knew the answer to. And I purposely lied. No, I wasn't hallucinating at all. Oh, I was fucking hallucinating bad, real bad. And I knew something bad was going on. I had enough training to know something bad was going on. And I really am very descriptive in the book. I've had good feedback on the descriptions. So I'm interested in anyone who's done DMT. If what they read in the book, if I had a combination of some type of DMT along with some other type of hallucinogen that lasts maybe a little bit longer, because I was still feeling the effects the next day. And what they do in these government medical facilities, there's so much involved in it. They tried to get me to cheat on my wife. They tried to get video footage of me doing that, and I wouldn't do it. And it's really weird how all this worked out for me. It was almost like God with a capital G was protecting me from my enemies. In our when we're dealing with people, we have this our subconscious will pick up on things that our conscious that we consciously don't pick up on. And for me, how this has always worked out, and it helped me as a cop during investigations and stuff, that morning time when you're in that twilight sleep, you're not fully awake, but you're still kind of asleep. And that's when you can have that lucid dreaming. So many answers would come to me then on what was going on. And that's when that answer came to me. Oh, wow, they've got so-and-so. I'm not going to name no names, but they specifically had someone in there to try to seduce me. They wanted video footage to get my wife to turn against me. Because if they get you into one of these facilities and you have no help, you're screwed. Okay. They can, like if I would have answered, yeah, I was hallucinating, guess what would have happened next? They would have given me all kinds of antipsychotic medications and all kinds of shit that would have really fucked me up.
Yeah.
So luckily I understood enough of what was going on. I had enough training also to understand what was going on, and they weren't able to turn my family, my wife, and other people against me. So I wasn't this lone veteran that they could just completely screw up. Okay. I'm talking MK Ultra type shit. So, yeah, my third book is going to be crazy. wait till I write the third book. But I go into that in this book, and I talk about how I got over unhealthy coping mechanisms, addictions. My next book's going to talk about how I had relapses in the last year. I'm going to talk about how, like I just said last year, I purposely, consciously was drinking a lot when I realized the enormity of what was going on. I really wanted to go back to sleep. I didn't want to be awake anymore. And it's just like, once you awaken, you can't go back to sleep. And like David said, once you start this fight, why do you walk away? You can't. And I've had a couple of near-death experiences. I actually did die. I had an out-of-body experience with that. I talk about that in the book. The book covers a wide variety of things, but in the 7th chapter, I pull it all together, and I talk about natural law in the book through the lens of a former order follower, an ex-order follower, and how I feel I suffered the negative consequential effects of natural law through the very just from doing my job and the jobs that I'd been in. And I can tell you how I came to Hermetic principles and how I came to Mark's work and all that stuff. Because like 99.9% of what I know about the occult natural law comes from Mark, and the other 0.1 I just used to call karma. So like literally, he gives you so much research to do. I wasn't looking for it. came upon it. And the reason I came upon it was because of these supernatural experiences I was having and the out-of-body experiences. I wanted to connect what we would call colloquial religion with science, which is a word that just describes a process. So I set out to do that like in August of 2018. And next thing I know, in March of 2019, I come across Mark's work. And it kind of just went on from there. And it just kind of snowballed from there. In 2020, when my book took a different turn, and I knew what I was going to start writing about, how I was going to change it a little bit, it was because of this worldwide PSYOP. You know, I work for the government. I know what I'm seeing. You know, just so people, like anyone listening who doesn't know, I was in the Marines. I was infantry. I was trained in security forces. I was stationed at the U.S. Naval Academy. I provided security for the ECAC towers, which is a central communication hub for the entire Atlantic Fleet of the United States. Security for the Naval Research Center, the biggest naval research center in the country. Lots of spooky stuff that goes on there. Didn't get to see any cool stuff, but still, I did all that. You know, I worked for NASA for a little bit for their security. I got out, was a cop for several different jurisdictions, worked in a prison system. And, you know, luckily I was one of those guys who was always light-handed. Like I'd have problems because I wouldn't write tickets. You know, in the beginning of my career, I wrote a couple, and I made this lady cry this one time. And I was just like, fuck that. Excuse my language.
No, it's all good. You're good.
I was just like, I'm not going to do this again. I'm not doing it. And so I'd get in trouble, not real trouble, because they couldn't officially get you in trouble. But I wouldn't write tickets anymore. So these guys, you know, they'd say stuff to me like, are you too good to do the little stuff? You want to do the big stuff, but you don't want to write a ticket. And I'm like, no, they're too good for the little stuff. I'm not here to make money for the city. You know, I didn't realize it then, but I was kind of following natural law, or trying to enforce natural law. Throughout my entire law enforcement career, I put 2 people in prison, and both of them were sex offenders. So, you know, I think in a really anarchist society, those guys would be put out of the village, so to speak. You know, they'd be gone. Like, you wouldn't have prisons. We'd either be able to rehab you, or, you know, see you in the next life, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I got like a real wide, eclectic degree of experience when I'm telling, and almost every one of my podcasts, and there's not a lot, I get it, but I'm always giving messages to my former ex-order followers, man. Stop the job. They'll throw you under the bus. They don't give 2 shits about you anyway. They're going to give you immoral orders, and you need to actually follow your general orders that actually tell you to not follow immoral orders. And so one of my messages is the big thing that these politicians are really good at is obfuscating what is actually moral. So understanding objective morality is actually very important. And we're not going to immediately get this society we want, but if we can get the order followers, the action takers, not to do it, then the rest of the world, we got a chance. If everyone just says, no, we're not doing that bullshit. And that was one of the things, you know, back in October when I was talking to Derek, at that time I had very little presence, but I hadn't heard any other cops come out since the beginning of this bullshit in 2020, when everyone thought it was the best thing. Let's make videos. Like, I've been out of this since way before then. I was already on my way to all this in 2019. I was out of it. I was out of it since 2015. So I was already en route to this. I wasn't one of those coward cops who's like, hey, I'm quitting the job now because people don't like me anymore, and I'm damned if I do and I'm damned if I don't. No, yeah, you are, because you're doing an immoral job. Get out of it. They don't care about you. And the military is the same thing. Like, I've got my adopted son is a sergeant in the Marine Corps. I'm trying to get him out of it. I'm working on it. It's worth doing, because these are good people if they can see that what they're doing is wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And in order to do that, they got to be able to, like, you know, adhere to first principles, look in the mirror and say, hey, I'm supporting an immoral structure. Like, all governments, like, I can see these governments working together. Putin and Zelensky are friends. Like, do I have proof? Can I produce evidence? No, I'm going to be going completely by common sense and intuition here. And education. We'll just say, if people can't see the stuff that, you know, most of us see, anyone watching this show is probably going to understand this. They get it. They see it. So like the bigger question for me then is how to, you know, get it out there to the people who don't understand in a way that we can get them to not butt their egos against us. Because as soon as we turn their ego on, we're in a fight. And then we got enemies we don't want. So like, I feel like there's more and more people waking up, but I also feel like it's a very small amount, and I feel bad that I didn't wake up sooner.
There's still a lot of people with masks on at the grocery store.
Yeah, you know, and like when I was in Florida, it was really weird when I was down in Florida because I go down there to train because I like the heavy atmosphere. It makes my cardio better when I come up north. So I go down to Florida, and it's like what I remember of America. Florida is still America. Like not many people are wearing masks down there. You still see it, but it's like not mandatory. And so I'm traveling all up and down the East Coast, and yeah, masks still. There's still that group of people, and David Icke talked about it, that like 1/3 of people who are really scared, they don't know any better. And then there's like that other 1/3 who they don't want to do it, but they're afraid not to.
Yeah.
And then there's that 1/3 who don't do it. And we're the ones throughout history who change things, who stop the tyranny. So, you know, that's why I say throughout all of history, why we kept continuing right back where we started fighting slavery. You know, it seems like there's a pattern going on here. And a lot of people have talked about this pattern. It's easy to see, but for some reason, when you talk to people in your personal life, they can't see it.
Yeah.
You know?
No, for sure. And you know, you're right. The order followers is if we can get people to quit the cult,
Yeah.
and that would be drastic change in my book. That would be positive change. So
Yes,
I think, you know, a message like yours and your background is extremely important, and definitely needs to get out there.
Thank you. I'm going to do it. Thank you.
Yeah, no, right on. And you know, when you were describing when you were in the force and as a police officer and stuff, you're conscious that voice was there and was loud.
It's there for a lot of guys, and that's why they end up in conflicts with them. Like I tell these dudes, I'm like, listen, you want me to write a ticket for somebody who's going 11 miles over the speed limit, and when I get off duty, and I say this jokingly, but I really meant it to these guys. When I get off duty, I'm going to go 25 miles over the speed limit just to get home and have a beer after working with you fucks. So, and I meant that in good nature because you get along with these guys too, right? You know, but there's a lot of ego and a lot of cronyism and a lot of backstabbing in that line of work. That's crazy. All of them want, like everyone fights for promotions. Like they want to take less orders. The higher up they are, the less orders they have to follow, right? But they're still following orders. General Mattis followed orders. And he was a general, beloved by the Marine Corps, completely sold out as soon as this shit started. You know, if that was even him.
The voice is there for a lot of them, right? But there's excuses and justifications.
Yeah.
And
they make these self-justifications. And I just don't think, I think when it comes down to it, I'm glad that I was light-handed. I never like wanted to enforce something that was a victimless crime. Like I didn't arrest potheads. Like I had friends who smoked pot. I smoked it myself before. Why am I going to arrest someone who smokes pot? It's not immoral. Like, and I, you know, it's like, since I've grown my hair long and I did this for a reason, I carry myself in a way where your average thug's probably not going to mess with me. But I wanted to look like this because then I ain't got to worry about some tactical guy taking me as a threat. And so the best way to be tactical is not look tactical. And so since I've done this, I've had like I've had several like invites from 2 different states, from Florida and Ohio. Hey, come work for our vice unit. Come work for our vice unit. And I'm thinking to myself, well, I turned them down. No, I'm not going to do that. And I'm thinking to myself, why would I want to do that? I've got enough vices of my own. I talk about them in my book, Rising from Darkness. I'm not going to join a vice unit. Vices don't hurt nobody. They hurt yourself. You know, and that's that to me is the one of the contradictions in the 7 deadly sins. I really liked how Mark put out, and I've talked about that too, is okay, those are warnings against excess. They're not deadly. You know, the word sin comes from the Greek word sign. You're missing the mark. It had to do with archery, right? It has nothing to do with some kind of deadly sin. That's how they control humanity, is through telling you it's a deadly sin. Yeah, anything that you do that's bad for yourself, you're not hurting no one else. You probably shouldn't be doing it, but you're not hurting anyone else. So some of my understanding of natural law, and thanks to Mark, helped me to understand I wasn't some immoral piece of shit because I had some unhealthy coping mechanisms, and I was able to get over them then. So that's kind of important too. And I leave that in the book. I'm not going to. I realized when I put it out the book the first time and how I put it out, people weren't grabbing it. This is an action-packed fiction, man. Grab the book. There's good information in it. And then one of my ideas was, if it somehow went like mainstream, which I don't want it, like I didn't want it to, right? Like I wanted the book to help, but I wanted to stay not known. And I realized that's not congruent. It's not going to happen that way. If I get out there and talk and it went mainstream, it might bring people to Mark's work or to natural law work faster. And faster is needed right now. So I was like, okay, you can't have any shame about anything or be worried about anything in the face of what we're facing. There's a larger enemy at the gate. So everyone has to do whatever they can do. I feel like it's my dharma to do this. And if all I can do is get other order followers not to follow immoral orders, if they can look at my story and be like, wow, you got thrown under the bus, they really tried to fuck you up. Maybe they can be like, yeah, I'm not going to do this no more. I mean, from a self-preservation standpoint, if not from a moral standpoint, get them to stand down, because if they're on our side, they at least got some training. They can help if stuff goes really bad, which is what I'm worried about.
I keep thinking about just how important your niche is in the natural law propaganda. I mean, I really consider what we do as natural law propaganda, trying to put it out in different ways, and by interviewing people and seeing what they're doing and maybe collaborating and putting information out. But I always think about the different groups you want to hit, right? Like nurses and doctors, right? Another form of order followers.
Biggest order followers right now. Yep.
And how do you reach them? If you have someone who's from there, they can help to understand the mentality, maybe understand different ways to contact those people. And it's just a definite important aspect. I mean, one of the most important that you're touching on. One thing I was also thinking is, with these order followers who, they might have a little bit of conscience, like there's a prestige that comes with those positions, right?
Right.
There's a prestige that comes with being a military, that, everyone, thank you for your duty. Thank you for, everyone like feels
I feel
like
so embarrassed when people say that to me. Like,
yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like with nurses, it's like, oh, they went to school, and it's like, these people are dancing, doing TikTok videos during a pandemic. Like, these are not like, not to talk bad about all of them or anything, but, or generalize, but, these are, anybody can go to nursing school and learn how to be a nurse. It's, these are just, kind of copies, clones of these people that just go into it, a lot for the money, a lot for just the fact that it's a huge industry now, and it's just getting bigger because of these pandemics, where now it's like, they're going to need more hospital workers, and like, people think they're doing something noble because they're fighting, on the front lines. And so it's like, how do you break through to those people? And in some cases you can't, but all of us obviously feel like we all have to try, right?
Yeah, I did hospital security for a city hospital, and I worked as a law enforcement officer for a federal agency that was a medical federal agency. I'm not going to name like straight up names. Like in personal conversation, I gladly will. I'm just not going to do it on a public forum right now. But I watched them lie. I had an audio recording of a doctor lying, doing exactly what she was ordered to do by the suits. Let's just say it that way, by the suits. And I put that up in one of my podcasts, and it stayed up for a while because it was buried. But then more people started finding my page, and all of a sudden it got taken down. And I got my first strike on YouTube. And being the knuckleheaded Marine that I am, instead of doing the Navy SEAL thing and trying to be, covert and getting information out there in a different way, I was like, nope, storm the beach, put it right back up. So I got my second strike. And then I started getting a little more careful. I was able to get podcasts out and everything was fine. And I got quite a few podcasts out and put them on YouTube. And then the David Icke interview was like, okay, you're done. And I see other people with David Icke interviews on there, but they're not like an hour and 40 minutes long. They're like 10, 15 minutes real quick. Me and David had the kind of conversation that YouTube just doesn't like. And I had like probably maybe, thanks to Colin and Mark's show, I only had like 30. At one point I had like 9, and then all of a sudden I was up in the 30s. I called into Mark's show and I had like 80 followers, all of a sudden. And then I do the David Icke thing and I'm like at 100 and some odd followers. Like it starts growing and they shut me down fast. I think people that already got 162,000 followers, even if they don't monetize their page, still are making them money through advertisements, which is why they haven't like deplatformed bigger names. They're deplatforming all the little guys because we're not making them any money. And like, if you got a lot of followers, even if they ain't got to pay you. If you haven't monetized your page, they're not paying you, but they're still getting paid by, advertisers. So I think that may be why they haven't, deplatformed certain people here and there, or some people are just more careful about what they say. They do it in a different way where they're getting the message out there without going directly against these evil pieces of shit in a way that, because they're looking at the bigger, more holistic picture. They're not centered on one thing, where like someone like me is like, no, this is a scamdemic. Like, I'm not leaving that point. Like, I won't leave this. This is like, I had someone tell me, you're one of those conspiracy theorists. And I'm like, no, I'm a conspiracy analyst. This is a real conspiracy, folks. So it was funny because the guy, and I put it in my podcast, the dude came up to me at the gym because I had liked like a picture he was in, and his wife seen me, and they looked at me, they looked at my page, and she followed my Facebook page. And so he comes up to me, he's like, you're the Facebook conspiracy theorist guy. I'm like, holy shit, I'm getting recognized in my area for this. Okay. And I told him, no, I'm the conspiracy analyst, and this is a conspiracy, which he didn't believe me, but at least his wife is awake and not woke, because I feel sorry for the guys who have woke women. But yeah, that's a whole other story.
Yeah, man. It's good. I think, and John, you just said this a little bit ago. People that kind of wake up and have the self-realization of what's going on right now, and they come from a certain field like nursing, or a doctor, or, military or something, focusing on that industry and talking about morality, natural rights and stuff is a huge advantage, right? Because you already come from that industry, the inner workings of it and how it operates. So I think this is kind of a misconception. People think that when they want to talk about natural law and stuff, they need to do it like Mark Passio. Mark Passio's doing it in his flavor and his expression, right, his way, when in reality, there's infinite amount of creative expressions on how we can talk about how reality actually operates, and freedom, sovereignty, natural rights. So I think that's important for people to kind of realize. And in really any industry, I mean, you can be a veterinarian and the shit applies, because there's tyranny in every facet of society. So something for people to think about.
Hey, we have a comment from I think she was an ex-order follower as well as a nurse, our friend Kristen. She said, John, you are so right about healthcare professionals like nurses. I speak as one myself, and I can tell you right now, most just got through school on rote memorization and do not know the first thing about healing or prevention. They glorify doctors who would rather give you insulin for diabetes instead of educate you and walk you through proper diet and exercise. Yeah. That's the problem, it's the system, and then once you're caught up in it, another aspect of that is the guilt you might feel, so for example, parents who, have given their children, all of these shots throughout the years,
Right.
You know, they to admit that you were the one that caused harm is difficult for some people, you know.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like there are good medical professionals out there, but there's just there's too many of them that are willing to do what the suits tell them. And like I'm more scared of them right now, or I'm equally as scared of them as I am of any cop or military person. Um, but I'm glad she said that. That's exactly right. Because what happens is they monetize the medical system, so they make money off of our unhealthiness. It's like the prison system, the criminal justice system. As soon as they monetize it, which is what they've done, people are going to jail for bullshit that's not immoral. And I worked in a prison and literally got along with really nice people who are good people. What happens is they get into the prison and they get put in there with people who eat people. And that's the kind of prison I worked at. It was a closed max reception center. So you'd be in there with literally, I had a guy like Dr. Lecter in my unit. So you got some guy who's doing like a year because he's got caught, you know, dealing marijuana or something. And he's literally in there with Dr. Lecter. Big difference between those two guys. But the system's making money on them. So when I was a cop, the last thing I wanted to do was make the system money off of like someone who's speeding. You know, yeah, if you're going 55 or 60 in a school zone, okay, you might need to be told to slow down, right? But I got to the point where all I would do is give warnings. I did, or I would just like flick my lights on. So they'd be like, oh God, you know, there's a cop there, and they'd slow down. Well, I just did my job, and I didn't mess with anybody. I just think the whole thing is actually immoral in itself. Like I will never go back to it. I was toying with the idea, like if they were to say, hey, we need you, because I got some tactical training. You want to come do some, you know, stuff with human trafficking or child trafficking, right? And I was thinking to myself, yeah, that'd be the only thing I'd go back for. Then I'm like, wait a minute, I know about the deep state war. I'd be fighting other law enforcement people who are fucking allowing it to happen. So it's like, no, I'm never going back to it. Like, you really have to take a look at the whole picture and do research besides just what you think you know. And then once you start researching and seeing things, that's when you realize there's no excuse to go back to that. No human being, no sentient being, because of all the, I don't even like to use the word alien because it alienates. So no being, period, extraterrestrial, human, has a right to rule over another being, period. I became a vegetarian because of it. I don't know if I'll ever be able to go full vegan. That's tough. But I'm not some health vegetarian. Trust me. I got about 20 pounds of fat I want to lose because I eat 4-layered cheese pizza, but it's vegetarian still. So I'm working on vegan. I don't know if I ever get there, but I did it like for moral reasons, because I feel like, hey, I don't want to like propagate the harm of animals you're killing animals for this. You know, and as a side note, I just got done staying on a ranch in Florida, and they had these 3 like teenager cows that were there, and they didn't slaughter their cows. They did something else with their cows. I don't know if it was what milk, they'd sell them or whatever, but I'm running up and down, and these cows are playing with me, running with me, and doing like they weren't used to having somebody doing laps up and down this 1/4-mile driveway, right? And I say to myself, I'm like, that's not food. They're playing with me. You know, that's not like, it's like, really, you start having these different thoughts once you become like more awake to different things, you know?
It's a completely different worldview.
Yeah, you start to develop one. And then what happens is you go through, like me personally, there's bigger, more important things than our feelings. I'll just say that right off the rip. But just for anyone else who's like starting to go through this, you go through it and you start looking at other people around you, and you want to try to, you know, get them out of it. Don't be too distressed if you can't immediately do it. There's a lot of social engineering that goes into how we think. And that's why I became a cop. You know, I grew up watching G.I. Joe. I grew up watching cop shows. I was going to be a hero, right? Serve something greater than myself. And I did, but it wasn't something good. And that's what I want to get out there to other order followers is, you're not serving something good. And they're going to throw you under the bus. They don't give 2 shits about you. I'm looking directly into this thing. They don't care. They will throw you on the bus. Look what politicians do to each other. It is a clown show. The whole thing is a WWE show. You know, one of my podcasts, I talked about, these politicians ain't for us. They're for them. Governments are working together.
Yeah,
If you do
definitely.
enough reading, you see in the 80s, we almost lost the war then. There was a deep state war then. They wanted to do this then with AIDS. If you read William Cooper's book, Behold the Pale Horse, I was reading that like in July of 2020. I had to look at the date it was written, and it was written in like 1990. I thought it was just been written a couple months before. Everything he described was happening. I'm like, wow. Like the same thing with 1984. These people knew something.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
They knew something.
All the answers are here, right? And they're available for people. The problem is people aren't looking, and they're choosing not to look.
Right.
Kristen on Facebook said a little bit ago, she was talking when John was saying about, parents kind of realizing that they've harmed their children through needlecraft and stuff like that. And she said, yeah, correct. That requires responsibility and accountability. And this is across the board, doctors, police officers, military, right? They immediately, they don't want that responsibility and accountability. It's just about them and food on the table for their family and stuff like that.
Right.
So, there's a lot of just consciously making the decision to ignore conscience.
They shouldn't do it because if you have any common sense, any tactical common sense, and I joke around when I was in the Marine Corps, I was in the infantry, I was trained security forces. The nuts and bolts of a surveillance or counter surveillance operation are the same, regardless if it's the CIA, FBI, or some seedy private investigator. The nuts and bolts are the same. So when I was in the Marines, as a young Lance Corporal, 19 or 20 years old, I specialized really in strippers and beer. Yet, where's all our military people now who are higher intelligence officers? What are they doing? No one's talking. And that should be enough to let people know something serious is up if all of a sudden these people aren't doing nothing. And when they've got this type of operation or PSYOP going on, they give you no break. It's rapid dominance. As soon as one stage is done, there's no grace period. They immediately implement the next thing. So I'm watching this with my level of training and experience. Now, keep in mind, I did some plainclothes stuff. I was a cop for a lot of years, so I'm an older guy now. But my military sense isn't like all this. I don't have all this experience. I was a Lance Corporal. I was an E3 in the Marines. I'm looking at this and I'm like, why aren't other people seeing this? There's got to be so many other people seeing this. And that was one of the things I talked about, Derek. Why aren't more order followers speaking up? I'm not talking about those knuckleheads that were speaking up in the beginning, all making videos about the lockdowns in the very beginning, right? Things got a little rough for them after that. And we haven't seen any more cops speak up after that.
Mm-hmm.
Where's everyone else that can say, hey, we know, like military cops, stop doing this. They literally cannot get nothing done if the action takers don't take the action.
Exactly.
Hey, old guys, you come knock on doors to do raids for marijuana and you come raid countries. We're not going to do that. And
I wanted to tell you a story. I just started working at a supermarket locally. They're hiring back again. The pandemic's over and all the requirements are lifted. A lot of these people again that work there still wearing the mask.
Right.
But there was a gentleman going through the line and I was chatting with him and he was telling me about how he did DoorDash. And I said, I used to do Uber and we were talking about that. And then I said, I stopped when the pandemic happened. And he was like, oh yeah, I didn't want to deal with people in my car. And I was like, well, I wasn't worried about getting sick. I just didn't want to deal with all the mask, nonsense. And he goes, oh yeah, all the plastic and all that. And he goes, after 2 years, people are just tired of it. And I said, yeah, I said, until they do the next one in 2025. And he said, who are they?
Who are they? And that's the name of my book. Yeah. Rise from Darkness. Who are they? And I only know halfway of who they are. Like literally, I grew up watching G.I. Joe. You know how Cobra has no face? Like Cobra Commanders. There's no face for him. All the rest of them are wearing masks. What did Hasbro know that we didn't realize back then? And little did I know I'd grow up and really be fighting Cobra. And if you look at the whole reptilian angle that David Icke has, is they're part of the Anunnaki. And I believe humans are too lazy to be driving this. Like this is something else driving this. So you want me to get into theories? I got all kinds of theories. I should do one on nothing but theories. But as far as actual conspiracies, I can very confidently say, folks, what's going on in the world right now, complete conspiracy. Conspiracies are real. That's what's happening. It's a conspiracy. It's not a theory. And they try to goof on us. They want to they want to put you in with flat earthers to, it was the same thing with people with 9/11, right? I know stuff about 9/11 that I'll talk about eventually, but that was a psyop, that was a false flag, but planes really did hit the towers. So like they'll add to the conspiracy theorists that, well, they're saying that planes didn't even hit the towers, that it was just all, like Jurassic Park video. So they make it so out there that they totally, discredit the real information people try to put out there about how it was a planned operation or known about operation.
Yeah.
Well, that's the game. It's information and mis and disinformation, and it's our job to discern through that.
Right.
And it's a lot of the effects field where a lot of us aren't going to agree on what exactly happened, and we're not going to be able to know what exactly happened. But again, I just I think it's we have to focus on that morality piece and get people thinking about that. In terms of the conspiracies, there are certain ones that could maybe wake people up, like 9/11 is a good example. JFK is a good example, like that was the thing that I had thought of later. What I should have said to him is, who were they that killed JFK? Right.
Mm-hmm.
Like, do you really believe it was Lee Harvey Oswald, or do you believe there was something else going on? If you believe there was something else going on, you're a conspiracy theorist.
I watched this video.
The term came from.
When I read William Cooper's book, and because he spent the 80s talking about the assassination, and he was pointing out at the 29-second mark of the video, or it might have been the minute and 29-second mark or whatever, but he said, pay attention to the driver. And the video was still up on YouTube. So I'm watching this video, and literally you see the driver do this and shoot him. And I seen it plain as day. I rewound it a couple times. I'm like, wow, it was the driver. Okay. So I'm reading the comments, and all the comments like, oh, poor Jackie, poor this, poor that. I'm like, didn't they just see the 29-second mark? But they hadn't read the book to know where to exactly look. And if you watch it closely, again, this is me just analyzing it, looking at it. If you watch it closely, the guy that was in the passenger seat, they're both Secret Service agents. They were both in on it. He turns around and looks before the shot was actually done. So that way, when they catch the video of the thing, you just see the guy in the passenger seat, that guy turning around, like you see that stuff, and see what he was about to do is blow the lid off of the New World Order initiative. He was going to blow the lid off that. He was going to blow the lid off of extraterrestrials. They didn't want that happening at the time. The very fact that the contradiction exists, that they lied about extraterrestrials for so long, and now they're throwing it out there in our face 24/7 for the last 2 years, should make people think, something's weird with that. Like literally, I think like people in this country are just hoping for the best, and are in a state of, many people are just in a state of, a state of fear, a state of denial. And they try to gaslight. Like I made a post about this because I'm really off the hook on Facebook, but I'm like that in real life too. They try to gaslight their friends to make themselves feel better, because I think internally a lot of people who are agreeing with this actually know. They got to know. They can't be that stupid, really, honestly. Some of them know, especially the ones who are politically driven. Now, if someone tells me they've never voted and they're scared of all this, I might believe them. But, and I talk to people about my a funny story is the first event I went to at Anarchadelphia, I was going to go there and tell people I was the next order follower. I was going to do the hot mic, but it wasn't like ran really well. And I didn't get to do the hot mic, but I did hand out some books, and I let people know that I was the next order follower. I was scared to death. I understood what anarchism was. At that time, I completely understood it. but I wasn't sure if everyone got that memo on the non-aggression thing. So I was still, and I can handle myself in a fight. I've been, in martial arts. I was still nervous going there, but I went there, and there were a couple creatures of the night, but they were repelled by the consciousness and love that was there. They didn't stay.
Where was this at?
This was at Anarchadelphia.
Bro, I knew you looked familiar, man. I was there too.
Okay, that's
I think
that
I
was
remember seeing you there, man. Yeah.
And I had short hair. I was a little bit heavier, but you probably did. I know the one guy who's on the One Great Work Network, pretty hardcore, Viking dude. I forgot his name.
Logan?
No, it's not Logan. I know who Logan is. Hopefully I'll be seeing him because I'm going to Float Fest here.
Sethicus Boza.
That's it. We ran across each
what
other.
What up, Sethicus?
Yeah,
What's up,
Sethicus,
brother?
if you're watching, you said, "Hey, nice Mjolnir," and I was like, "Yeah, man, thank you, nice Mjolnir." I'll show you a funny Mjolnir. I got all these different Mjolnirs, right? This is just totally off topic, but I'm also a comic book geek. So
that's all right. We always got time for Thor's hammer.
This is one of my Mjolnirs, but I'm afraid to wear it around like really hardcore, pagans, because this is Marvel Comics. I don't want to get beat up if I wear this one, but like I've got all kinds of different Mjolnirs. I respect everyone's beliefs, especially if they're moral with their beliefs. If their spiritual practice doesn't involve harming others, and I even know Christians whose spiritual practice doesn't involve others. I got very strong beliefs about Jesus. He was an awake human being. He was trying to tell you religion's bullshit. And then what did everyone do? They turned around and made a religion out of him. Yeah. It takes research, it takes reading, and it takes discernment, and it takes the willingness to say, I was wrong. Okay. And not always say I was wrong. I don't think you want to walk around always saying you're wrong, but if you could admit you're wrong, and that's what we have. People won't admit they're wrong. And if you vote, you're wrong. And if you vote left, you're extra wrong. I mean, that's all I can say. And I'm not political. Before I was an anarchist, or before I identified as an anarchist, I didn't vote. I called them Republicrats and Demopublicans because nothing changed.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing changed.
Yeah.
Over the years. Sure. I mean, it was plain to see.
One thing I want to bring up too, because the self-defense principle, I think this is important for people to talk about often.
Right.
I know you're big on the self-defense principle and firearms and jiu-jitsu, right?
I've been in martial arts my whole life. My jiu-jitsu is still trash. I'm working on it though. But I've been in martial arts my whole life. I was the defensive tactics instructor. I've been told I'm good at it. I'm no Bruce Lee. But like, you're my Facebook friend. You can look through videos. I do got videos of me doing stuff. Go ahead. Yes.
Yeah, no, I think it's important right now, right? Because, we're trying to propagate information. And as we can see for a while now, there's going to be certain people that have, almost completely checked out and they're not receptive whatsoever, right? And then there's some people that might be. And, but knowledge and education of the self-defense principle, mainly tactics, how to defend yourself, martial arts, all this kind of stuff, extremely important for people to get into and find some type of balance of and practice with it and contemplate situations.
Right.
I think kind of where things are heading. Well, if we look at all the protests, right, that have been going on, hundreds of thousands of people, millions of people protesting like during the lockdowns and stuff. And the one thing, in my opinion, that was lacking is the activation of the self-defense principle. People are congregating together. They're under, nonviolence, peaceful protest, right? But yet there are initiators of violence there, and that's the order followers. And when you have several 100,000 people, million people together, and the self-defense principle is completely gone. This is why
violence mentality kicks in then, and what ends up happening with that is the biggest thing with self-defense is, like I talk about this in Violence and Ego, you got three main categories of martial arts. You got traditional, which does bone hardening and weapons hardening of what you're striking, with maybe some traditional, weapons. You've got combat sports, which is good for timing and distancing, and it helps develop a little bit of character. Everyone needs to get punched in the face. And then there's there's reality-based self-defense that really deals with real street self-defense. And part of that, they need a balance of all three, in my opinion. But part of it, and I've talked about that in the book, and how to find an instructor that can give you that balance. It isn't like jaded towards one or the other. You need that balance. Part of the self-defense principle is the person has to give themselves permission to get violent. Like when you're being confronted with violence, the person has to give themselves permission to use force. And so many people don't want to do that. You have to be willing to do that. And I've taught women's self-defense classes, and women are the biggest ones. Ladies, give yourself permission to get violent. Trust me, or to use force, I shouldn't say. There's a difference between they're the ones being violent. Give yourself permission to use force to defend yourself. And most people won't do that. They can't imagine doing that. And that's the first step. If you could imagine yourself picking up a brick and hitting somebody in the head to defend yourself, you've just made a breakthrough.
Check out episode 16 of Natural Freedom League with Mark Passio, Having the Psychopath.
Yes.
That's the exact topic that we talked about.
Yes, and you have to do that. When I first seen that, I was like, yes. Like that was completely one of those things I knew already that Mark didn't have to teach me. Everything else he's taught me. I understood the psychopath part. Go figure. I'm an ex-order follower. But but then you have to be able to turn it off just as quick.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that I like about, Mark's legendary anger in the last couple of years. Right. And I love the puked out, but anyway, he's put those in at the perfect time too. Like I was dying. Like I almost spit over my keyboard when he did it. But his anger is conscious because he shuts it down just as quick as he starts it. Conscious anger actually, to me, comes from a space of love. And we have to be able to do what we're doing from a space of love, and including getting anger, which is why in 2019, I went to go see him speak with the sacred gift of anger. Like, he thinks he's an intermediate martial artist. I think he's more advanced than he thinks he is. Just listening to what he talks about, from a self-defense aspect personally. And it's coming from a guy who's like a black belt in a couple things, whatever that means. It holds up my pants. But you need to have fitness. You need to be in shape. You need to do other things, right? You need to be able to shoot. Are you willing to shoot somebody?
It's all about the state of mind, right?
Can you break
you have to have that internal dialogue with yourself. And that's what having the psychopath is. It's a tool set within your own psyche. So when that time comes, whatever it may be, when I say the time comes, I'm not talking about even societal. I'm talking about day-to-day interactions.
Anytime, right.
Someone, a woman, and you're with your child, or a father with your child, and, muggers come out, or whatever it may be. Are you ready mentally?
Yeah.
That's where it's got to start.
What I've told people to do is, and I talk about this in my book, Violence and Ego. So I'm plugging my other book. I've been terrible at my books. I've given more away for free. I'm not in this for the money. So like
people go check them out. Let's put the link on there too. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's cool. I tell people to war game things, because if you war game something in your restaurant you go to all the time, you war game something any place you frequent regularly, you war game. What would you do if you end up setting up some type of cognizant memory, and then all of a sudden when it happens you react faster to it because you've already played that war game what if. So
well said, man.
Play the what if you can play that what if game, your chances of coming out of that, play it all the time, especially if you're wherever you're at. Play it, because violence happens fast. And back in ancient Japan, the samurai who got his sword out of the sheath the fastest is usually who won the duel.
Yep.
So it isn't
unflinching.
It isn't this thing where you're moving around like in an MMA fight and throwing feints and filling your opponent out. It's whoever gets the weapon out first, or the tool, I should say. It's not a weapon. You're the weapon. The tool you're using, whoever gets to their tool the quickest and smoothest is going to be the one to win the encounter. So war game this stuff and practice it, whatever it is. Whatever your method of carry with a firearm is, practice it. Do it a lot. Like in law enforcement, there's all this ego about do this technique, do that technique, do this tactic or whatever. I'm like, as a defensive tactics instructor, I don't care what you do. Pick a tactic and get really good at it. And don't worry about comparing it to any other tactic. Just get good at what you pick. And that takes repetition. And I mean, that goes for everything, because like my podcast really sucked. And all of a sudden they started getting better because I had done some yoga Zoom classes. I got used to this, format. and they got better because of repetition. So repetition is important with anything.
Yeah, man.
You know, one thing I was thinking about with when you were talking about, you know, the effects and the conspiracies is that, you know, we don't know exactly what is going on, but it's pretty easy to show that something is going on,
Yeah,
right?
some
So it's
smells
like,
rotten in Denmark.
it's like, you know, if you can like just get that hook in on people to get their curiosity going as
Right.
to what that is, and then, you know, have materials for them like you have with these books. I mean, that's a great way to get around the problem with YouTube censorship. You know, we've been, you know, not even going live to YouTube and, you know, using it more as just a way to promote what we're doing.
Right.
But yeah, if we can drive people to your information and people can look at your books, and if that resonates with them, that message, that angle of the message, it's all the
Right.
same message, you
Right.
know, to start getting people to think and use their conscience, you know.
Well, that's one of the things that I like about the whole concept of the One Great Work Network that, you know, Mark's put together. I'm honored that he asked me to be a part of it. And absolutely, yes. As soon as I can get set up, absolutely. And oh, by the way, all day tomorrow, I'm going to be at my web developer. He's a really good web developer, good young man. He's very conscious. He makes a lot of money web developing. I'm going to be with him like probably from like 12 to 6 all day tomorrow, working on a website to get me at least up and running with my own website. Because right now I'm on Rumble. I got one video on BitChute, and then I've got my books. Because I had all my stuff on YouTube. And I'll say this about Facebook. I've stayed on Facebook. There is this danger on Facebook. The danger is this. You go in on Facebook, and I realize I do this. You go on Facebook, you share some posts, you make some angry posts, and you think you've done something. And you realize, hey, you get taken off of YouTube. Facebook has already got me like censored to where I'm not coming off restriction until June. And it's like, yeah, you have to have your own website. You have to have other things. So I'm working on that tomorrow. I'm lucky to have this guy who's a very good computer programmer from code. I've watched him work before. It's like the dude's from outer space. It's just so fast what he does.
Sweet.
So like, I'm very lucky to have, and like, I'm his martial arts mentor, but he's been my technology mentor. So you can learn from people younger than you, but absolutely take their advice, man. And when I see guys like him, and I hope he sees this, John, I'm talking to you. I hope he sees this. There's hope. There is hope. Not all of them are lost. Some of them are like awake enough to really awaken all the way, you know. Can I plug one other person real quick? And she's in my book.
Yeah.
Psychic Sonia Hortzman, very gifted psychic. And I wish I'd have listened to her more. And I put that in the book too. If you're ever in the Cleveland area and you want a reading, go to Psychic Sonia. All you got to do is type in Psychic Sonia. You'll pull up stuff on her. Trust me. I got to definitely bring her up. She's helped me out a lot.
Sweet, man. That's awesome. Well, yeah, I got one of your books, Rise from Darkness. I'm looking forward to getting into it, and gonna have to check out the other books as well, man. And you know, and actually, I think it was a week or two ago, the last few weeks, even on Mark Passio's show, you see the callers calling in, and you know, there's people making websites and making content. So we're seeing more people come out into the public and talk about this.
Right.
And I think that's really important. There's definitely a great awareness, and that's opportunity. And that's
his
good.
message is being heard, and other people's messages are being heard. Everyone's got a different way of doing it. I wasn't sure how I was going to do it, and I knew I had to be careful, because if I'm not careful, I can sound too much like him, because I cuss and I get angry. Not quite as angry as he does, but I still get like that, and I don't want to come across like that. I want to be me, right? But being me can sometimes sound slightly like him. You know, like I watch how your shows are, and yours are completely even keeled, given all the exact same information. Completely loved it. So there's some people I get that would probably dig your way of putting across, and then there's some people who need his way.
Yeah.
There's probably some people who need your way. I mean, that's why I like about the network. Everyone's got their own solution. Everyone's got their own way of putting it out there. And I figured that my niche would be talk to order followers, because we need to get them to stop.
Yeah, that's awesome, man.
So that's all I can say is get them to stop. And if they do, you know, they're the ones that are going to do the harm ultimately. And that's how it's always been throughout history.
Exactly.
So it's like they're the ones who have to say, no, we're not going to do this. We're not going to have it because we know this shit's immoral. So the better we can teach what true morality is, the better that you can't obfuscate those morals and actually get these order followers to do things. Like one of my podcasts I posted where you had German soldiers shooting women and children because orders were like morals were obfuscated enough to get them to drop the hammer on women and children.
Yeah.
I don't even understand. I can't even comprehend that. And I'm going to tell you that most good cops, if you want to say good cops, a lot of cops in this country can't understand it neither. It's why they're going to be replaced. That's why there was a dark, what was it called? Night of the Long Knives in Germany.
Mm-hmm.
They had to kill the current cops to put the ones in there that they wanted.
Yeah.
Because the current ones weren't going to do it. So that's probably coming too. Like that's something to worry about. Yeah.
Definitely.
They do it in increments because if they squeeze too tight, they're going to get everyone to unite against them. They know exactly what they're doing, which is scary. But there are people waking up and there is hope. You know, we've got the same venue they got and we're using it right now. So that's cool.
Yeah,
I'm learning more and more about this, man. I'm so glad you guys had me on. Thank you.
Oh, our pleasure, man. Appreciate you doing the work, brother.
No, I'm trying. Like when you hit me up, I was like, wow, I must be I'm making a couple ripples if someone's hit me up. Like, that's cool.
That's what it's all about, man. You know, just creating that action and that energy, vibrates and we collaborate.
I dig it.
That's how it works, man. And that's great. And that just amplifies the message and the voice, man. So it's good.
I'm just trying to figure out how I'm going to do my next tag chat because how do you follow up David Icke? How do I follow that up? I got to figure out something to talk about pretty decent on my next tag chat because how do you follow up David Icke? You know.
So what's the name of your podcast?
My podcast is called Tag Chat, and it comes from the martial arts because in jiu-jitsu they have this thing called mat chat, where you'd be on the mat talking and you're not actually trying to strangle each other, and you're talking about the technique. So I was like, hey, Tag Chat, talk about tactics and stuff. And what ended up happening is I started thinking, well, you know what? If we don't have any of this other stuff down, tactics doesn't matter. So I just kept it as Tag Chat, and I'm talking about natural law on it and other things related to order following and natural law. I'm just going to keep it Tag Chat. That's why I was really surprised that someone like David Icke responded to me, like, you know, was willing to do it. What he said something that I really dug was, and I read it on something that he wrote, is he's not concerned about sitting with these mighty people well known if he can't come to somebody like me and be on my show and talk to me. And he was one of the easiest guys to interview because he carried the whole thing. I asked him like 2-3 questions. He carried the whole hour and 40 minutes. It was like great. It was a nice, I learned some stuff on that. When you could get to talk to people like this, like I've learned from you guys tonight, when you could get to talk to people in this kind of way, you leave knowing something. So that's what it's about, right? It's just learning something you maybe didn't come there with.
Exactly.
Yeah, man, no doubt. Absolutely, man.
Evolving consciousness.
Yes.
Yeah. All right, man. Well, we appreciate you. Let's once again plug where you're at. The books are on Amazon, right?
Yes.
We've put the link up a few times.
The links are also in the chats as well. We'll get them in the description as well. And Dan's also on Rumble. Check out his podcast.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to actually linking your work on our website too, because I think it's good that specific target audience that we want to reach. You know, we want to have that on there for people too. So
absolutely, because I can tell them they're going to get thrown on the bus.
Yeah,
it's going to happen. They read my book, they'll find out what they try to do to me.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
You know, and I'm completely sane as an ex-Marine can be. Okay. I mean, other than that, I'm completely sane. They will try to throw you under the bus. Trust me.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. Good stuff. All right, brother. Dan, thanks for coming on, man. Really appreciate it. And all the viewers, thanks for joining the chat.
Yeah. Thanks, everybody. And always remember, put something good in the air and plant something good in the earth. Peace.
Outstanding.
The intention of Natural Freedom League is to expand the understanding of natural law, which is based on objective morality, and to expose the illegitimacy of the belief in authority, and thus the inherent immorality of all government.
We be the Natural Freedom League, cause we become no longer unbegun. We seek in the wisdom, and that's why we did come to this prison, a prism. And that's why the beat thumps, and that's why we speak up. We be the Natural Freedom League, cause we become no longer unbegun. We seek in the wisdom, and that's why we did come to this prison, a prism. And that's why the beat thumps, and that's why we speak up. We be the